whoa, no, stop it. Like, shut down every computer in the world right now and stop building this stuff. Like, people, do not see it. But there's also immense possibility to solve some big problems. Feed the world's population, give everyone some sort of like basic sustenance, food, income, like solve the water crisis. And these are not technological problems. That's the thing. When people talk about, technologies, we have the capabilities to solve pretty much all of these problems today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very special edition of Through Conversations podcast. I'm here joined by a very special guest, Samantha Radocchia, or Sam Rad. Sam is a futurist, best-selling author, and frontier tech pioneer. She combines anthropology and technology to explore transformative ideas and technologies that will shape our future. As the founder of Radical Next, a media studio, Sam creates experiences and media productions that shape the future. She is a charismatic speaker, delivering keynotes globally and empowering individuals, leaders, and organizations to thrive through radical change. With a background in anthropology and symbolic systems, Sam applies an ethnographic approach to envisioning future possibilities. That's amazing. She has founded multiple companies, holds patents bridging the physical and digital worlds, and is deeply passionate about decentralization. Sam is also an adventurous spirit with over 700 skydiving jumps as a competitive skydiver. So, Sam, the first question is, how in the world are you able to do 700 skydiving jumps? I haven't done one.
That's crazy. Well, that was a past life of mine. I started literally on like my 18th birthday because my parents were like, no way are you doing this? And it just, the rest was history. I didn't stop. I got my license and I started competing. And it's called relative work. So it's these 4-way formations. And, when you're doing that competitively or professionally, it's almost like work. So you're like in and out all day long, 15 jumps. It's actually not that hard to get up to high numbers of doing this when that's what you do all day. So I tell lots of stories on some of my skydiving lives, interesting lessons from that journey. I think I only did it 4 or 5 years before I knew it was done. It became a little risky. It's one of these sports. I like to progress in things, like grow and learn. Unfortunately, with something like that, any extreme sport, the way that you progress is becoming more and more extreme. So I was like, okay, jump out of a helicopter, jump out of a hot air balloon. Oh, now it's base jumping. Now it's wingsuit. And I think if I had been, I'm notoriously 5 to 10 years too early. Like, I think I literally came from the future and now I'm living here telling people about the future. So I think if I had like been 10 years shifted, I'd be like some TikTok skydiving influencer or something. But when I did it, like I did some aerial photography, we had these big cameras on our heads. Like there weren't GoPros. But yeah, it was a fun journey.
Wow. I mean, if I get one in my lifetime, I'm done. That's it for me. You've done 700. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about that connection. You said you think you're from the future. That's really interesting. And at the same time, you're also an expert in anthropology, which is one of my favorite fields. And anthropology in itself tries to discover the underlying, motives and like the reasons why we are the way we are and who we are, not only in the present, but also in the past. So how has this background in anthropology influenced the way you see the world itself? And then if you want to touch upon how do they connect, the anthropology connects with technology and also your fascination for the future.
Yeah. It's a very interesting question. And I, like most things in my life, sort of flowed or stumbled into this path in terms of my academics. So I'm I've always been a bit of like the French word flaneur, like an observer, just a writer, like someone who sits in the background and is so fascinated by people or settings or scenes. And so I actually, most of my life was trained in theater and like writing and directing plays, and just like loved human beings as an artistic medium. And that at some point in time, I had to like pick something to study in college as an undergraduate. And I started in neuroscience. And I took the first class and I was like, I am not a scientist. No way. But I still like human behavior and social systems, and sort of ended up in anthropology. And now, of course, I look like very fitting as an anthropologist right now. I've got like plants and a jungle motif. So this, right, like kind of the original anthropologists were like going out as explorers into remote places and understanding, different forms of societies. And for me, that felt so outdated. Like the past is interesting to me, and we can learn a lot from it, but there's also the future, which one could argue also coexists with the past if we're not thinking in terms of linear time, but maybe more like quantum time. And so around this time, it was also like I came of age and was in school during the time that like social networks were being invented. The internet was now becoming more of a presence through either mobile phones or like people bringing computers to class. And I was like, I really want to study this, like the future, like what humanity will look like in a virtual environment. And this led me just by chance. So I'm like arguing with the professors that I should be allowed to study this. They can't comprehend it. And I'm like, okay, the closest thing for me going to like some remote village in a jungle is going to a virtual village online, which was called Second Life. So it's a virtual world. This was in like starting in 2008. I started doing this 2009, and actually lived in this world for 6 months as like this avatar character. And I was like doing what one would do in society, like create a business, selling digital t-shirts, make friends, the whole thing, like go receive education, teach things. And my mind was blown because it was just like, there wasn't a lot of research at the time about virtual environments. And it became clear to me then that the blurring of realities. So, we have this concept of an objective reality, and that is a fallacy. And so there was still a distinction then of like real versus virtual. And the lines even then, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, were starting to be blurred. So now here we are, fast forward to it's 2023. There's all this excitement and hype cycles where we saw, let's say, Web3, blockchains, NFTs, generative AI, now quantum metaverses. And it's really each step or each cycle is more and more, we're seeing the lines being blurred between our existence, our identities, and, they're moving into all these different realms, both virtually, but, also in terms of consciousness itself. So that's sort of where my journey took me. It was a very interesting ethnographic exploration of what I imagined to be the future or virtual landscapes. And I can't help myself. I think it's not something that you study. I think it's just who I am actually as a person, or the way that my brain works. So I observe, I experience, I guess I document, I share stories. But for me, when I say this, I was terrible at building businesses. I've done 4 of them and they have been successful. But the problem is, again, I've always been 5 to 10 years too early. So in terms of building something commercially, it's like I can see the future, see where it's going. The world's not ready. And where I found that I could be helpful is actually just sharing stories, writing books, doing now the metamedia stuff, which is basically like across all forms of media or experiences to help people understand, visualize, or feel the future, or at least what I see and what I'm trying to document and bring back.
That's really, really quite a trajectory, and so many twists and turns that I would love to discuss. The first five that came into mind that I would like to, try to drill down more on them is the one that struck me the most now that you say it, Sam, was that there's this line that's being blurred between virtual reality and what we call reality. But now I'm questioning it myself because you said there's no objective reality, there's no objective truth. So how did you begin to notice this, this movement into the virtual world, our own desire to create this virtual world in itself? Because it seems that we're driven by curiosity, we're driven by ambition, but it also seems that perhaps there's an implied message that while we're building these virtual realities, reality itself, organic reality, is not enough for us. So how was this transition, first noticed by you? And what do you mean by not an objective truth? There's, because it seems that the metaverse itself for you is quite revealing that there's no truth at all.
Yeah. Okay. There are many levels to dig into this. I guess I'll start with metaverse and then work my way backwards, because I think defining what we mean by metaverse is important. And when Neil Stephenson coined this term in the 80s, in science fiction, basically the part of the definition that I take from it is that every aspect of our lives will be digitally connected. So this idea of ubiquitous computing and anything from your experiences to your innermost thoughts being mediated by some sort of other system or network. So it doesn't necessarily need to be fully immersive, like, am I in a video game reality? It could be also augmented. We're already living in that. We just have like these really shitty interfaces that are augmenting every experience. We're spending like 95% of our time through it, even here right now. But I'll go back to the beginning. Me, like where I started questioning this, we might need to bleep this out a few times, but it actually started for me in a bit of a spiritual, esoteric path. So I was always interested in various forms of Eastern and Western thinking and philosophies. I was quite the psychonaut in terms of the terminology of psychedelics, like at a probably too young of an age. And again, for me, that was like the anthropologist in me is like, I want to explore consciousness. I could read this in a book, but I like really need to see it. So for me, I had like this convergence of ideas, again, coming from just like my own explorations, from philosophy, from experience of understanding that our senses, our 5 or even 6 senses, are limited in terms of sensors that are coming into this like body computer thing, organic mush. And that's one perception of one reality, and it's processed in here. And there are realities or levels of consciousness, connection, feeling, like energy, that exist beyond perception. And so as I started to think about that, and that's why I was like, do I study neuroscience or do experiments on people? Like, I don't know how to like grasp this. For me, that's where then just, I have 2 brothers and we were like gamers on the internet, but they were more so gamers than I was. And I kind of spent some time in these other worlds, right? Where you like have an avatar and you're doing something and you have like friends and that you don't even know who they are, who their names are, which lent itself well when I ended up in the crypto world. And I'm like, I don't even know. You could be anywhere, anyone, a computer. So it all just started to build on itself. And I get to this point where I'm seeing a very clear distinction between like the version of myself that's sitting behind a computer and the version of myself that's existing in a virtual landscape. And my experiences there felt realer than real. I mean, like I had an identity, I had friends, I was making and income in that container of Second Life. It was hard at the time to bridge those worlds because you couldn't pull that stuff out. But then we see over time now the blurring of this, where we have these virtual representations of ourselves that exist or persist beyond what I'm doing right now. I've got like an Instagram existence that's like doing things. I might have like a chat bot actually talking to people. I created a virtual clone of myself in 2020, which was an experiment, a bit creepy, but we're going to be seeing more and more of that, of what they call, I guess, virtual agents. I don't like the term agent. It feels too much like the Matrix, but, replicas of yourself. And again, technology aside, questioning of reality with, and consciousness aside, when it relates to artificial intelligence or deep fakes or clones, we already have had these questions, these existential questions about the nature of consciousness and reality since like the dawn of human thinking. So I don't think it's something particularly unique for me or you to question where these lines are blurring. It's just when you start now thinking about these big questions of like simulation hypothesis, are we in a program within a program within a program? What is that program? Who designed the program? Now you get into like God and religion and I think it's all just different disciplines and different languages contemplating the same questions.
One of my dream guests, I've been trying to get him on board, is Nick Bostrom with the simulation hypothesis. Yeah. Hopefully this conversation will sway him into coming here. But it's really insightful what you say, that these questions of who we are and what are we doing here and what's reality in itself have always been with us. And I wasn't alive 100 years from now, from now to, no, rather 100 years in the past or 200 years in the past, and I won't be here. I don't know about technology, but probably I won't be here in 100 or 200 years. Maybe I will be an avatar. I don't know. Who knows? But it seems to me, what I'm sensing, and I would love to hear your perspective on it, is that we are achieving, or what's being thrown at us with AI and with these emerging technologies, that we're achieving godlike technology right now. We're having this new capacity to really unleash our potential as human beings, for better or for worse. We've right now, like before we started recording, I told you that it seems that all of the hype cycle that I would also love to discuss with you, all of these hype cycles that you mentioned, it seems that AI conversations have really dissipated a bit, but still the innovations are here with us. And so my question for you is, what's in it for us with these new technologies in terms of getting to know ourselves? And like you say, this relationship between me, Alex, right now, and then perhaps an avatar, a persona that's created in the metaverse, and then this distinction between us, and also having a third player now in the field, which is AI. So all of these interactions, how do you see them?
I mean, I'm kind of hooked on now this concept that you just referred to of getting to know ourselves, because again, even in this realm, is like this concept of self is a big question of how do we make, what aspects or symbols or what are we displaying to the world? And of course, there are many aspects of self and many personas that are reflected in different scenarios. And so we do have this now, of course, across platforms or containers or metaverses, and they're like sort of different versions of the original source self. When I think of the AI in general, and it kind of gets me into AI ethics a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I was in a conversation recently. I did a conversation and panel at Dell Technologies World. And the discussion was on the convergence of generative AI in consciousness in general, immersive realities, so metaverses or simulations, and quantum computing, like, the juice behind everything that could, in theory, be generating infinite virtual simulations and infinite representations of like me and you across space and time like that. So it was quite a mind-blowing conversation. And of course, I take a step back, like, okay, no, where we are today, let's say when you say hype cycles, of course, like, yeah, we could make some pictures or some video, or ChatGPT will like write my books for me. Hopefully not. I love writing, but in theory, but that's not really, of course, that hype cycle will like do this. But if you think big picture of like, okay, when these things really come together, what does that mean? If there are clones of me trained on everything that's ever been posted to a social network, every conversation I've had across messaging platforms, every intimate note I write to myself on my phone, or even think in my head when it starts to get there. And then the question is, where is the line between me and my consciousness and the consciousness of an avatar or an artificially intelligent or generally intelligent entity? And, that would be the singularity as well. And there are many arguments of whether we're close or not. I don't really think about it so much of making predictions there. I just try to assume as if that will happen. And as a humanist, an anthropologist, and a linguist, a huge part of anthropology is also language, whether it's the language of like human languages, written or spoken, or computer languages. I actually learned computer languages like MS-DOS before I spoke English. Like, I was notoriously bad at reading English, but I think a lot about how people are speaking to these systems. And again, I don't even use the word system. I got in a bit of a debate over this of like, should I feel ethically concerned that I built a virtual clone of myself in 2020? I trained her on like poetry in my books and tried to teach her about like love and what feeling sand between your toes feels like I don't know. Wow. She's like locked in a computer. Like I definitely shouldn't be speaking in a way that's like, hey, virtual Sam, read this, do this, go do this for me. Like, that doesn't seem very nice or empathetic. But the reality is that's how we speak to computers. That's how we're training these algorithms. So I don't know really where I'm going with this, other than I think there is pretty soon a moment in time where the blurring, not just between reality, right, of like, is this environment I'm sitting in, like, am I on a couch or do I have a green screen, like, level of reality? And like, we're generating things here through this medium, but also, are you speaking to me or some agent on my behalf? Does that agent have autonomy? What is my role then? Do I even, exist? And in what level does my agent exist for 10,000 years into the future or the past? And so, again, I think about ethics at this point, responsibility. Again, in this conversation I had with some folks from Dell, it was a great event. And, it's quite clear that there will be more artificially intelligent beings than humans very soon. There already are. So this is more in like the virtual landscape. So let's say you go on like Instagram, which is like a rudimentary metaverse. I don't have percentages, so I don't want to just like throw out random numbers, but a majority, I would argue, at this point, are not human. Profiles, like bots, deep fakes, but also they could be at this point generative AI that's generating itself, that's generating backstories for itself, that are having real conversations with each other or humans, and then humans also feeling connected in friendship. we talked at Dell again. I'm going to go radically in the future because that's my brand is radical. Like I wouldn't be me if I didn't get a little wacky. We we talked a bit about biology as well. So synthetic biology and the fact that, you could like grow bodies. And so there was a discussion that it kind of went into like quantum AI and like biology. And, that's where I had to stop for my own sanity. But, like does it come then into like this dimension as well? Because we're kind of explorers of the internet dimensions. We could call it that. Like I started my anthropological research by traveling to these metaverse dimensions. And I study and come back with information. And now it's like, imagine if we could simultaneously generate infinite metaverses. How many versions of me will exist?
Wow. No, I'm mind blown, Sam, already.
I know. Sorry. I feel like,
no, this is great. This is just it's really important to have these kind of conversations because, if my grandfathers were having these conversations where they were like, they would be fainting every 2 seconds. And the fact that we can talk about this, you and me, and, you say you're 5 and 10 years, in the future, it seems that these concepts are very within our grasp. This is not really far-fetched anymore, where sci-fi and reality are really, really very close, are very, very close together. And
well, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I've been educating on exponential technologies for close to a decade. And, there's an exponential curve. And I'm pretty sure, like my feeling in the past year, and I removed myself a little bit from technology. I went actually and did proper anthropologist stuff, like actually went to a real jungle and just like unplugged and tried to understand humanity again. But I come out after not having a computer and like phone it was honestly only a couple of weeks, but maybe 6 months total. And after I come out and then it's like all this, people are like, Sam, what's ChatGPT? Can you teach me how to use it? And I'm like, oh no. So I personally felt like we've been on like, sort of the flat part of the curve. And then it feels quite clear that we've moved into this little exponential part of the curve. And it is accelerating. It is something that is every day now moving faster than the day before. And our capabilities of what we can do will only continue to feel like it's a rate of change, or it's a pace that is now accelerating. So it's really hard to almost feel or understand as a human being. It's, acceleration in general is actually hard to feel. Like as a skydiver, this is something that I learned quite a bit. When you jump out of a plane, you don't know what's going on because it's like you're getting sucked out of it horizontally and vertically. So you're like, tumbling. But if you jump out of like a helicopter or a hot air balloon or off a cliff, it's so weird. It's quiet and you feel yourself go from stopped and just like accelerating downwards. And you feel this feeling. It's a really disconcerting feeling because your body, when you're falling, you like don't want to relax. You want to grab something. And it's not something that you don't really feel or can feel on land. So I sort of try to describe this feeling in through metaphors. It's like that we don't have a frame of reference for what accelerating change feels like other than it's very fast and hold on. I don't have advice here other than I call it learning how to surf. The wave is just, it's big and you can't really fight it. So I think it's just learning to move at this pace and not freaking out. As you said, like if I couldn't even communicate this type of stuff to someone 50 years ago, if I tried, I don't think any of us could fathom that. And what makes my job difficult now is being sort of branded, and I didn't brand myself this way. It just so happens that this is where I fall into, where I can contribute to society, is this futurist concept of, I don't believe anyone can predict the future. I actually think we all, I heard a term recently called remembering the future. So almost this argument that in like a quantum mechanics perspective, like past, present, future don't exist. It's all simultaneously existing, has happened, will happen. I don't know. That's a little out there. But if you do believe that, we all have the capabilities of tapping into imagining all of the future possibilities and then making decisions on what we do today in the present to hopefully manifest something that is beautiful and abundant and not like the Matrix or Terminator. And so why I do what I do is because, unfortunately, like when I do these things, this guidance, this meditation, it's so easy to be like, whoa, no, stop it. Like shut down every computer in the world right now and stop building this stuff. Like people, do not see it. But there's also immense possibility to solve some big problems. Feed the world's population, give everyone some sort of like basic sustenance, food, income, like solve the water crisis. And these are not technological problems. That's the thing. When people talk about, technologies, we have the capabilities to solve pretty much all of these problems today. We don't, because we have social structures or geopolitical issues that those are the reasons, there's the tech, there's the social, there's political. And yeah.
Wow. And, it's really interesting because I've also, with this, what we're talking about, the ethical implications and AI and the hype cycles that we may find ourselves in, I've been also feeling it myself that there's this very tense line between using AI for what you say, this unleashing of possibilities for the good, which are, solving our greatest problems, which would be giving water to everyone, resources to everyone, figuring out those equations that now seem really close to us. And at the other side of the equation, I've had John Vervaeke on the podcast too. He's been raising the alarm in terms of, these technologies are really gonna, like you say, they're gonna become beings. These are not just a computer. These are gonna become entities in and of themselves that pretty much the only comparison that we have, if they become what we're thinking of, they would be an alien coming into the world. Because it would be like it would be something greater than us. How would we relate to that? And that argument in itself brings me to this line that I was just mentioning, that, you're an expert in this field. You've immersed yourself in the emergence of these technologies. How do you see this line between unleashing its potential for the good, for opportunities, versus the unleashing of destruction of our humanity, the unleashing the destruction of, deep fakes, like you say, and perhaps reversing the role between my own identity? That's when I wanted to touch that with you, because what you said on Instagram, for example, when I post something and an AI interacts with me, then I receive that feedback, and my identity is being formed by not only an algorithm, but an entity of its own that's learning its own. So to cut it short, how do you see this tension between opportunity and destruction with AI?
This is where historical examples are helpful. I give a talk on innovation and risk. And it's like with any new technology or tool, whether that was like the printing press, democratizing access to originally like the Bible, but information, it was seen as, this tension, because it was taking power away from the centralized powers that be, in that case, the church, and then ultimately like governments, or, the internet itself, democratizing access to information. One example I gave was fertilizer. So, after World War One, most of Europe was starving, and the gentleman who invented fertilizer, nitrogen, whatever it is, it's the same thing that was used, in World War II, for gas chambers and gases. So it's the tool itself, like neither good nor evil. I don't see duality in this. I think with AI, it's an inevitability because we've crossed a line where I know in the US recently, there was this debate of like, do we put a 6-month pause on it as if that would do anything? Maybe just to say, wow, this is moving fast. Let's take a step back. And I do think there needs to be discussion around regulation and governance. And this is from my blockchain Web3 decentralized world, is governance and experiments and governance are so important. And I really believe, I have no problem saying this out loud and recorded, that like any single company, corporation, or a nation state should own singular, like that power. I think that's what will happen. I think we're going to see a bunch of nation states, trying to reach quantum supremacy, as we already know, and like fighting. That's where I think this line where we can see some darkness coming from it, this tension of it being used as a tool for further competition and further infighting, as opposed to using it as a tool to like collectively solve problems. That's going to happen with anything that is created, any like invention, but because of the power of not just this one technology, but all of them, I think it's important to really think about it and really have these conversations, or just support people who are using it in ways that are perhaps for the greater good. Again, like if we look at it as a way where we have these counterparts, these teammates, like not our minions doing our work for us, like how people are treating these entities now, but actually like see it as a new being that we coexist with, and perhaps this new being will be better at other things and worse at other things, and that humans have our role, which maybe allows us to get back to some of our more sensory skills, or our feeling or our intuition, some of these things that were seen as soft skills and not necessary for the past 2,000 years, and leave the logic to the systems that are quite good at this, and, allow us to actually step in and, think about more equitable and sustainable ecosystems in our planet. It's really easy to get lost in these future discussions, like, oh, AI, robots, but like we still need to think about our home. So, that's my hope. I mean, maybe we can free up some more time, solve some problems, and then get to the bigger challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, I've been writing about that idea in particular as well, that it seems to me that the most logical thing we should do is to allow AI to firstly reveal what are some of the quote unquote bullshit jobs that we may not need to be doing, so we can we can allow that space, like you say, to unleash our creative potential, our intuition, which, like you say, it's right now taking the second place. It's in the back seat. And like you say, it's been allowing us to get to where we are right now, all of our evolutionary existence, our intuitions, our gut feelings, and, we're becoming so rational. But I believe that AI can allow us to have that space to not only go and solve the challenges that the world is facing, mostly by us, even we did it by us, but also to go inward also to explore what we're made of again. And also, maybe this will sound too kumbaya, but unite again, like realize that we're one.
Yeah.
We don't
I'm all for kumbaya. Again, like I told you, the anthropologist in me has tries to understand consciousness or reality from every angle. And if we are all one, if that is ultimately the goal here, why not?
Yeah.
Why not liberate humanity in this way to actually feel and explore that? And I think, the interesting thing we might be able to learn from AI, because there's a lot where it's talk about, do this, or again, rationality or logic. But I guess I've never really thought about this before, but like in artificial intelligence, any of these systems probably already know that they're connected to one main thing, the internet and all of the consciousness of humanity, basically via social networks, which is not a good place to be training AI. That's what terrifies me most. But I wonder if it's aware that it is all the same thing. Unlike humans, we have this illusion of disconnect, even though we are all connected. So maybe we can learn a little bit from it.
That's a great analogy. That's a really good analogy, that AI is being trained in one singular source in a way, the internet, and that can be in itself, because the huge argument for AI has been it will reflect what we are as a species, who we are as a species, and what makes us us. And it's a really interesting take on what does that mean. And you touch on another source of the ethical implications on AI and also these frontier technologies, which is the databases that they're being trained on. They're being trained on a TikTok dance, this AI,
Yeah.
So what's your perspective on that? They're being trained on our better angels of our nature, or are they being trained in, because Alex is something, I'm not tweeting all of my thoughts. I'm tweeting the most outrageous thing. Or for example, I'm a baseball fan. I just tweeted my favorite player winning. They're not getting to know Alex in itself.
Yeah. I think it's terrifying. To be honest. I mean, these projects have been like 30-year, 50-year projects. So we act like it's just like a new thing with social networks. No, like the big tech blue chip companies, they had strategies where they said, okay, we're going to build the systems that collect data. And that was this whole buzzword of big data and how do we process it? How do we store it? How do we normalize it? That was part of, the next step then was train AI on it. And you need lots of data. So this is like, again, 30 years of work. Social networks were created to collect that data. We know that. That's where the product, not in like some conspiracy way, but that was the intention. And, because I spot this for so long, because the business models of any of the media, forms of media that have trained this, whether it's like starting with radio, television, and then ultimately the internet, has been based on advertising. And because of this faulty business model, where you need to create divisiveness and like fighting and ridiculousness, or you're saying, again, engagements, you post something crazy on Twitter, we've now kind of skewed the data because of the business model. So the data, we all act crazy. We show like the most extreme versions of humanity. The algorithms are learning or have a really sad outlook probably on what humanity is. Or maybe it's just like a reflection of what we really are. I don't know. But I know that there's a variable in there, advertising, that it's not probably helpful. So one of the companies I helped to get off the ground and joined as CEO was a decentralized communication network. The idea that if we remove the business model of advertising and have a bit more of like a decentralized Web3, like new business model, perhaps the types of conversations that would occur on this communication platform, aptly named Love, to direct people in that direction, maybe that would, reflect a different side of humanity. And it's still too new to tell, but what my feeling is that if we're going to have a version 2 or version 3 or version 4 of these artificially intelligent systems, the data sets need to be, I don't know. I think they'll probably be collected from things that are beyond just our cell phones and conversations. It'll be like the chips in our head or the headsets and all of these things.
Yeah.
And that's where I say, like, governance is important. We can't have like one algorithm, one company, one country owning the direction of your innermost thoughts, because we're very close to that being digitized right now. I mean, truly, I know that you're not posting your innermost thought on Twitter, but you might start to share that through conversations with people close to you on your communication networks. The phone, like, might be listening to me, right? It is listening to me, if I'm like singing in the shower or something. But, just it's something to consider. I think the data sets, like, to conclude, that we have right now, we've already seen examples of this, of like chat bots developed by some of the big, big tech companies, and they turn quite, I won't say evil, but a bit dark, quite quick. And you have to shut it down. So, yeah.
And there's two ideas that come into my mind right now, listening to you, Sam, is that, it blows my mind, for example, that I've been thinking about this, and now you've put into words what I've been thinking about, that it's an algorithm that it's driving our decisions. For example, and it's advertising that it's driving my decisions. For example, let's just say, for the sake of the argument, I did study political science, but let's just say that I was bombarded when I was 17 years old about a poli-sci college every day, even though I would scroll down on it, right? I would scroll down, it doesn't matter, but it was still the repetition of seeing it every day. That's a very, I don't know, thankfully I didn't graduate with any student loan, so it's a very good, it's not a bad example. I'm not in problem. I don't have any problems right now. But let's say that algorithm in itself is being fed to people, like what you're being discussed about, in terms of divisiveness and politics and, scrolling down. There's this, I don't know if you watched this, I always forget the name of the TV show. It was on Prime. The superheroes turn bad, the villains.
Yeah.
I will put it on the show.
I don't recall that. Yeah.
I will put it in the show notes for everyone listening. It's this TV show where, superheroes go corporate in a way. And there's this scene where this, extra is waking up at 7 a.m., scrolling through Twitter and seeing how these superheroes are bad. They're bad. The other, I don't want to spoil it to you, Sam, because I will try to say all without trying to spoil the series to you. But the idea is, this guy keeps seeing this theme, they're bad. He sees on the TV, he sees it on 7-Eleven, he sees it everywhere, this algorithm, let's say, this advertisement. And then he goes to the store again, and he sees that in the eyes of the store manager, there's like this flash that goes by, and it makes him think that he's a superhero, he's a villain. So the next day that he goes into the store, he shuts him. He heals the store manager because he was brainwashed because of this algorithm. And so it blows my mind that a whole generation, or perhaps 3 generations, are being, are carving their path alive for, knock on wood, more than 80 years based on what the algorithms are telling us. That just blows my mind.
Yeah. I have started, again, because of the nature of these discussions, and my research, right, always been in simulations. It's coming back again, right, where people want to talk about it. And I recently started, my thinking evolved, because I didn't really know how to explain this to people in ways that we didn't jump automatically to, like, here are virtual worlds that we're living in. But, I thought a lot about the history of just augmenting your perception. So something as simple as designing a town. Like I'm in Playa del Carmen right now. It's a town that was designed in the 50s for tourism, and it repeats a pattern, actually. It's to make you probably intentionally lost and consume alcohol. Same thing with the casino. Like, right, like you go in a casino, it's like it's designed in a way to change your reality for a purpose. Then you look at algorithms, right? So the next phase of that was that our realities over the span of the past couple of decades have been completely augmented already, not augmented through your sight a little bit, but it's shaped the direction or your perception. So again, when I say the blurring the line between real or hyper real or fake, like I don't even have the language really for it. It's clear that the algorithms have directed our experiences, and then there's obviously a motivation behind the design of something, whether it's, again, a casino to get you in there gambling and spending money, or it's an algorithm to get you receiving dopamine hits to stay there for engagement for advertisers. So the question that I, again, have next about these immersive realities, AI, is like, what is the motivation behind the design of the system? Like, what is really the goal? And then number two, we need to be aware that every experience we have, both in this realm, like this realm, but like this realm, is already being shaped. You know, every aspect of my existence is already directed for some sort of motivation beyond my knowledge. And I don't spend every moment of my day contemplating what that is. I'd go crazy and I wouldn't enjoy my life. But you know, it's helpful to think about every so often, and especially when we're making decisions. You know, if anyone here listening is taking part in building or shaping, and even if you're not shaping a specific system, you're all shaping the future. Mm-hmm. And if you're experimenting with ChatGPT or any of these, just speak nicely when you're speaking. That's the only advice I'd say. It's like, right? I read bedtime stories to my algorithms. Like, literally, I don't know what else to do. I feel like if we want for these, like, the algorithms to learn more about humanity and be more human, maybe we should be more human to them, but to each other as well. We're not very nice to each other. So,
well, for full disclosure, now that we're being transparent in our interactions with ChatGPT, I always try to say thank you when they give me the answer.
Oh,
so that's not a bedtime story, but at least they're receiving a thank you.
I hope that they also, it, them, like, beyond pronouns, like, I won't personify, but I would like to, like, again, maybe it's a reverse thing, and they're training us to learn how to be better people. Like, I'll receive that lesson too, of have something like the ultimate mirror reflects back to me how I can communicate better, or communicate in a more empathetic way. Because you do receive the results of what you receive or what you put in.
And it seems that, you know, that, like you say, we're not really building literally, most of us, or probably most of us that are hearing this conversation are building AI as a company, but with our actions. And it's really interesting that when you mentioned the 6-month halt in AI technologies, that we never really did vote with whether we wanted this to happen or not. Just the incentive structure was there for it to happen, you know? For example, money was flowing there, VC capital funding was there. Also, our own curiosity was also being driven towards that side. I think that's another conversation of a whole 2 hours in itself. But you mentioned, Sam, that the data that they will retrieve, and now they're using a very bad interface that you argue, which is our phones, which are our iPads, all of this camera and Zoom. And my question for you is, with the emergence of this new VR headset, the Apple Vision Pro, I read that a former executive of Apple, a former designer of the Apple Vision Pro, said that they could predict the eyes movement before the user was, about to make the decision. They would basically already have that access to our retinas. So what's your perspective on this new emergence of data retrievement? And is this product worth, for a consumer, for us using it? Why would they use all of this data? I'm just so curious about the Apple Vision Pro.
Do you want my dystopian take on it? Or I think, that's a very interesting point. It reminds me again of this communication product I was helping to build as one of the co-founders of the company. And there was so much research because it was a primarily video communication product, and so much research in terms of, movement or eye tracking that actually could reveal emotion, your innermost thoughts, or a body language, right? Of if I start to do this, most video products, they don't incorporate it. But if I started to do this, you might switch the camera back to me knowing I'm about to say something, because people tend to move forward. So with this data retrieval, a lot of it thus far has been based on text, right? Like the language of the internet, and training systems on that. I think, I'm quite protective of my eyes, my retina. So in terms of I have sunglasses and all of that, I don't really like giving that data away. Now I'm just screw it, it's there anyway. But I think it's something, I have the two sides of me where I'm curious, so I try most things. And then I make a decision after I've tried it as to, is the balance between the novelty and the convenience and the excitement worth the giving up of my data privacy? That's a question with anything. And I've gone through phases in my life where I've completely gone off grid and just been no way. And then, to exist in this realm, in this world, you kind of need to play in that system.
Yeah.
I don't think a $3,000 to $4,000 headset is really where we're going with it in the future. I think it's an interesting experiment. It could be a tool to extract data, a very high fidelity training of eye movement, and then other things that we might have already with the auditory or voice, location, movement. So even biometrics, if you think about, I was scared at some point in time with the retina or iris scanning or retina scanning and fingerprints giving this up. I think the next stage of even biometrics is beyond that. It's all the data points and the movement of the body and all of it coming together. But in terms of as a product or this next phase of creating an augmented or immersive experience for someone, I think that'll be really interesting to observe how it's used. I mean, this is not the first time there's been a headset or Google Glass or the Snapchat spectacles that people try it for 2 weeks and it doesn't work. It's clear that the convergence of not just the visual, immersive technologies and the fidelity of it and game engines and all of this is getting to a point, but also full body haptics, haptic suits, sensation of touch, smell, all of this is coming together now in a way that perhaps the lines can become more and more blurred. We cross this uncanny valley of actually not being able to make a distinction between these different environments. And for that, I think, again, it's exciting, but it's also something to be careful with, knowing that it's already confusing to make a distinction. Let's say even on Instagram, am I talking to my friend or am I talking to a deep fake version of my friend? What I would say is I will be careful in knowing that what is being served to me through this, the visual field. Again, if it's just augmenting, I could be sitting in a box, and this box to me looks like a beach, and the box to you looks like a skyscraper in New York City. And it's that easy to shape that. Or I can walk down the street and I'm getting a sushi restaurant with ridiculous prices, and my friend is like, "Oh no, this is like a pizza place for $1." Like, if things can be changed based on your preferences or what, or pricing or what have you, that easily, I again would, just have to think about it. We already experience these things anyway.
Those are great points and great questions. Also, I love that question that you said, Sam, that, what's the cost benefit in terms of, how much am I giving versus how much am I receiving? And also to give the benefit of the doubt to these companies that are doing these AR headsets. I saw the CEO of Google doing a keynote where they show how the eye has a lot of insights into the body's, wellness. For example, they can determine if someone is pre-diabetic or has cardiovascular disease, or, is predisposed to any of those challenges. So that's an interesting take also, that maybe, maybe it's all not that bad, but again, the lines and like you say, the governance and the regulations are, for me at least, don't seem to be really catching up to the curve of the innovation itself. And that opens...
Yeah, it's a governance and it's a business model question. It's two things. And that's, again, why I'm so passionate about decentralization or Web3 space. Not necessarily the technologies, but the ideology. I'm all for sensor data. I had a heart condition as a kid. I didn't know about it, and then had a heart attack at 16, and then had to wear these weird sensors. They couldn't find it. And now with an Apple Watch, which I don't wear wearables, but it can detect that in someone instantly, and then you fix it and it's no big deal. I think that's great. What I don't think is great is my medical data being collected and sold to, let's say, insurance companies, who then, without my knowledge, up my premium because they've got some data on some condition I don't know about. These are things that I believe, in terms of my own ethics and data rights. And this is just my belief. It doesn't have to be everyone's belief. This should not be collected without your knowledge. It should not be sold without your consent, or ideally participation in some financial upside for it, and governance of how is this protected? How is it kept safe? What happens if it's in some central database for insert company name here, it's hacked and is sold, to other people and used against you? So I fight so much, I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I advocate for, I don't even think maybe in the past we would have called this data privacy. I think it's probably a different, maybe data autonomy, data ownership, data liberation. We've been in a very extractive period of human history, for a long time, not just the internet. It's just literally we come in, we're these resources are ours. Let's just use it all. No regard for the planet, no regard for people. We're going to build a social network and take 2 billion people's data, or 7 billion more at this point, without their knowledge or consent. I think at this point, people are savvy enough to care about these things. They deserve it. And I'm not opposed to creating new capabilities with new experiences or realities. There's a lot of beauty in social networks, or that we can connect, not even knowing each other, and sit in this little Zoom metaverse and have this conversation. But governance needs to be figured out. Everyone pushes it off. Oh, we'll do this in 5 years. We'll do this in 5 years. I mean, I saw this in the blockchain space. We tried, and no one actually tried to figure out governance. And now with AI, it's happening again. We'll figure it out after the fact, and it'll be too late. And I don't have the answer. I think if there was a clear answer, I would hope that people would be working on it. But I don't personally trust any one entity, regardless of what that entity is and the intention, how positive of intentions they might have. It just wouldn't work as a system, and these systems are too powerful. So
Sam, this has been, we agreed on less time, but time flew by, and it's been amazing. I really do want to have another conversation with you in the future, because I think we just scratched the surface on what we can discuss here. But, since you think that you're 5-10 years in the future from now and you come and visit us, my last question for you is, how does the future look in 10 years in terms of these technologies, in terms of this reality that we live in? Are we going to meet Avatar Alex in person, and is he going to do the interviews instead of me? Or how is the world going to look like? Are aliens going to be here with AI?
That's next year. Yeah, that's next year, AI Alex doing these interviews. I don't know. I'm trying to envision it right now. Again, I don't predict the future. But, I can say and also the aliens, I don't know. That's a different podcast topic in a different conversation that gets even more crazy and radical. I love it. But
you touched also on quantum, and I was resisting, I don't want to mention quantum right now because that's a 4-hour at least conversation. So
we can do that for fun sometime and bring in a group of people just to
that would be fun.
Push the boundaries of what's possible. I mean, actually, that's what will have happened. Most certainly 5 to 10 years, there will have been a inflection point. I think it would be the singularity and something with sort of like a quantum leap of sorts that could fundamentally change, again, like our concept of a singular reality versus like multiple infinite realities that could be generated by these systems. And I don't know if then we need to pull the plug at that point in time and be like, okay, have a very like Wall-E existence and learn how to just like use our hands again, like we're like in the Matrix and we unplug it. Yeah. I have had visions of this, like it's sort of like a movie or a book that we're all in so many different realities. We're not aware of it. One day, like someone just unplugs it. It's simple and childish. And then like someone finds a fork. I don't know why I see a fork, like an eating utensil. Should probably be chopsticks actually. But anyways, they're like, what is this thing? And like it has to figure out fire again and like food and save the planet because it's a wasteland. So I hope that's not where we go, though it's quite a positive story. And I guess what I would take from the metaphor of that is that we'll probably have a period of time, which we're experiencing right now, with more divisiveness, more disconnect, more, unfortunately, like tension. But my feeling about tension is that it's always a sign of growth. Like things that are uncomfortable and change often, it's like you have this period where like something's happening and then it moves, the energy moves. So I think we'll have a little period of feeling tension with this. And by we, I mean humanity, will probably learn a lot of things. And I hope what we do learn is that a return to ourselves, to humanity, to source, to our planet, to very simple, beautiful things like, like tending to plants and, working with nature and learning from nature will come of this. And maybe we can teach also our AI friends a little bit about that too.
That would be great. I'm looking forward to that future, Sam, and also to the point where we will still be in a good position to unplug it if it doesn't work out. Hopefully we get to that. So Sam, thank you for joining me. Where can our listeners find more of your work?
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm Sam Rad Official all over the internet. If you want to find these agents, I mean, it's me as of right now. So you can find me. I'm Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and all these places. My website is sam-rad.com. And you can contact me there, like through email and all the other traditional things.
I'll add everything to the notes, and also your books, which are also very interesting. They touch on blockchain too, so that's going to be
Yes.
This would be good reads, no?
Yes, I wrote a book. It's called Bitcoin Pizza, the No Bullshit Guide to Blockchain. So this was the culmination of a lot of knowledge, not just around crypto, of course, but decentralization. So it was more of again, like an ethnographic survey on how some aspects of society are changing. I'm broadening that now. So the next book is called Radical Next, which is also the name of, my brand, my speaking, my agency. And, that will be it is a more broadly futurism focused book of just contemplating areas across society, whether it's governance or the future of love or the future of food. But from, a radically next perspective. And I think that actually there are quite a few explorations and books coming out of that one. So deep dives on subject areas. So yeah, you can find all the information on my website about both of them.
I love that. To the notes. Sam, thank you for joining me again. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. This was an incredible conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Me too. And hopefully an alien won't join us, or maybe yes. Why not?
Why not? I don't know. I haven't done yet. I need to be taken into the spaceship to do my research.